At first, everything between Melissa and me seemed fine. We had a rhythm, a routine, a quiet kind of comfort. But slowly, little cracks started to show through the surface. She began staying late at work, claiming she had big projects. Her phone was always in her hand, even in the bathroom. When I asked about it, she laughed and said I was paranoid. But her laugh didn't sound the same anymore. It was nervous, too light, almost rehearsed. She started dressing up more for work, wearing perfume she never used before. I noticed new outfits, new makeup, and that distant look in her eyes. She said she just wanted to look professional. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But my gut told me something was wrong. We used to talk about everything. Now our conversations were short, polite, and hollow. Her phone buzzed at night, and she'd flip it face down. She smiled at her screen, more than she smiled at me. When I asked if something was wrong, she rolled her eyes. "You're overthinking," she said. Maybe I was, but deep down I knew I was. One night she came home late, smelling like expensive cologne. Not mine. She said she went out for drinks with coworkers. I asked who. She hesitated, then said, "Just the team." That hesitation told me more than her words ever could. I started remembering small things I'd ignored before. The way she mentioned her boss, Thomas, in casual conversation. At first, she complained about him being demanding. Then her tone changed, softer, amused. "He's actually a really nice guy," she'd say, smiling to herself. That smile burned in my head for days. I met Thomas once at her company's Christmas party. He was the kind of man who shook your hand too hard. Overconfident, polished, fake. He told me I was a lucky man. Now that line replayed in my mind like a bad joke. Around March, Melissa became someone I didn't recognize. Distant. Distracted. Always on her phone, always tired. When I tried to be affectionate, she pulled away. She said she was just stressed. But her stress smelled like lies. I started watching the patterns. Late nights. Short replies. A new energy when she left for work. Dead silence when she came home. The pieces didn't fit, but my heart refused to see it. Until one morning, everything changed. Her phone buzzed nonstop while she was asleep. I picked it up, planning to silence it. Then I saw the preview of a message. "Can't wait to see you Monday. Last night was perfect." From T, with a heart emoji. My chest went cold. T. Thomas. I froze, staring at the screen, every nerve screaming. I could wake her up and confront her right there. But I didn't. Instead, I put the phone down and walked away. If she could play smart, I could play smarter. That morning, I decided to stop being the fool in her story. It was time to write my own ending. When I came back from the gym, Melissa was still asleep. Her phone sat on the nightstand, glowing softly. I stared at it, heart pounding, then unlocked it. The password hadn't changed, at least not yet. I opened her messages, and there it was. A thread with Thomas, stretching back months. Hundreds of texts, pictures, and videos. Each one slicing deeper than the last. They joked about me, called me boring, predictable. She told him I didn't make her feel alive anymore. He called her baby girl. She called him daddy. I wanted to smash the phone against the wall. Instead, I stayed calm and started collecting evidence. I took screenshots of everything, every text, every date. I sent them to my email, one by one. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. This wasn't going to be a messy breakup. It was going to be a lesson. When she got out of the shower, I was sitting on the couch. She smiled like nothing was wrong. "Good workout?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. She kissed me on the forehead and talked about brunch. I nodded, but inside, I was already planning her downfall. That weekend, I acted normal. We went out, watched a movie, had dinner. She laughed, She touched my arm, pretending everything was fine. But every time she smiled, I saw the lies behind it. I waited until Monday. She left for work, and I told my boss I was sick. As soon as her car disappeared, I opened my laptop. I made a new email under a fake name. Then I searched for Thomas's wife. Her name was Rebecca Turner. Married 12 years, 2 kids, family pictures everywhere. She looked kind. The kind of woman who didn't deserve this. I stared at her Facebook profile for a long time. How do you tell someone their life is about to shatter? You do it with proof. I organized everything, screenshots, dates, photos. I created a timeline showing every lie, every affair night. When Melissa said she was working late, she was with him. I included everything that left no room for doubt. Then I wrote the message. Hi, Rebecca. I'm sorry to reach out like this. You don't know me, but we share something painful. Your husband, Thomas, has been having an affair with my girlfriend, Melissa. Here's the proof. You deserve to know. I hovered over the send button for a long minute. Once I clicked, there was no going back. But then I remembered her laugh, her fake smile, her arrogance. How she thought she could lie forever. I pressed send. Less than an hour later, Rebecca replied. 2 words. Can we meet? That was the moment everything shifted. The betrayal turned into purpose. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a man with a plan. And Melissa had no idea what was coming. We met at a small coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. She sat down without a word and stared at the folder I slid across. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the messages, photos, and timestamps. I watched her face harden, shock melting into a cold, determined calm. She asked how long I had known, and I told her the truth. She didn't cry. She listened, and then she said, "We make this count." Rebecca had already spoken to a lawyer before we left the cafe. She knew the court would care about evidence. She wanted custody, the house, and security for her kids. I wanted accountability, and for them to feel the consequences. We built a plan that was precise and focused. First, Rebecca filed for divorce immediately and served the papers. She wanted to move fast while the evidence was fresh. I agreed to supply everything I had collected, time-stamped and organized. Second, we prepared a formal HR complaint, detailed and factual. I wrote it like a legal report, with dates and screenshots attached. I emphasized the supervisor-subordinate relationship and the power imbalance. I included messages that showed meetings after hours and inappropriate conduct. Third, we mapped Thomas's professional contacts and client relationships. Rebecca wanted his reputation wounded where it mattered most. She explained the industry was small and news traveled fast. We didn't plan to ruin anyone's life without cause. We simply planned to let the truth do its work. Rebecca's lawyer advised caution and insisted on documents. We added witness names, calendar entries, and photo evidence. I sent the HR packet from an anonymous account to avoid bias. HR responded quickly, opening an investigation the next business day. They placed Thomas on administrative leave, pending the inquiry. That move alone put the first crack in his public image. Meanwhile, Rebecca pushed forward with divorce filings that exposed the affair. Court filings made the story part of public record. Once in the public record, the social and professional ripple began. Colleagues whispered, clients asked questions, and recruiters hesitated. We watched as the network that propped Thomas up began to fray. Rebecca handled everything with a controlled fury I'd never seen. She spoke to friends and colleagues with measured honesty. She refused to manufacture drama and refused to play victim theatrics. She wanted facts out, not gossip. Within weeks, both Thomas and Melissa were suspended from work. The company prioritized legal safety and public optics. They launched an internal review that left little room for doubt. people started calling my old friends to verify the story. Rumors spread across LinkedIn and industry circles quietly, but inexorably. Recruiters stopped returning Melissa's messages after the official notice. Thomas's clients began asking for reassurances about leadership. By the time HR closed its probe, the decision was clear. Both were terminated for conduct unbecoming and policy violations. The fallout was immediate and brutal in ways I hadn't wanted to imagine. Still, watching Rebecca reclaim her life felt oddly redemptive. She regained custody and secured a settlement that protected her family. I felt a strange, clean relief as the final documents were signed. We didn't celebrate with champagne. We acknowledged a painful truth, and then we let it end. The plan worked because we stayed meticulous, patient, and legal. It was vindication, but not the kind that fills a trophy case. It was the quiet restoration of balance and dignity. The day the investigation ended, Melissa came home pale and shaking. She said HR had called her in for a final conversation. She was officially terminated for professional misconduct. Her voice cracked when she said it, but I didn't react. I just nodded and let her talk herself into circles. She said someone must have reported them out of jealousy. She swore they were careful, that no one could have known. I stayed silent, pretending to sympathize while hiding a smirk. Then she asked if I thought Thomas would be okay. I told her I didn't care, and that surprised her. Later that night, she sat on the couch crying. I watched her and realized how empty her tears looked. She wasn't sad about betraying me. She was terrified about losing her comfortable life. I waited until she stopped talking before I spoke. I know about you and Thomas, I said quietly. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. She stammered, "What are you talking about?" "I've known for weeks," I said. I saw the messages, the photos, everything. The color drained from her face, then anger replaced it. "You went through my phone," she shouted. "That's a violation of privacy." I laughed, cold and sharp. "You're worried about privacy now." "I'm the one who told HR," I said calmly. "I'm the one who sent the proof to his wife." Her mouth fell open, shock turning into rage. "You destroyed my career," she screamed. "You ruined Thomas's life and his marriage." I leaned forward and said, "No, Melissa, you did. You lied, you cheated, and you thought you'd never get caught." She called me vindictive, petty, said I overreacted. Then she said something that sealed her fate. "So what if I wanted to keep my options open? Maybe if you'd made me feel wanted, I wouldn't have done it." I stared at her in disbelief, my chest burning. "Get out," I said. She blinked like she hadn't heard me. "Excuse me." "Pack your things, you're done here." She called me pathetic, said I'd regret this. She grabbed her purse and slammed the door behind her. For the first time in months, the apartment was quiet. The next morning felt lighter, cleaner, almost peaceful. But peace doesn't last long with people like her. 3 days later, she came back crying at my door. She said she'd made a mistake, that Thomas had used her. She begged me to take her back, said she still loved me. I looked at her, saw the same manipulative eyes as before. "You told him you wanted to keep your options open," I said. "Well, now you have them. Enjoy the freedom." She sobbed, tried to touch my hand, but I stepped back. "You have until Sunday to get the rest of your things." Her face crumpled, and she walked away without another word. That night, I sat alone in the dark. I didn't feel guilt or sadness, only relief. I'd spent months being lied to by someone who never cared. Now she could live with the consequences she created. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was closure. Rebecca's divorce case moved fast, faster than anyone expected. Her lawyer didn't waste time, armed with every piece of proof we'd gathered. Thomas tried to deny it at first, saying the messages were taken out of context. But when the attorney threatened to submit the photos and videos to court, he folded. He signed everything, custody, alimony, the house, all without a fight. His reputation in the real estate circle was already falling apart. By the time the divorce was finalized, he had no job left to protect. His company released a quiet statement about ethical violations. Everyone in their industry knew what that meant. Thomas lost his position, his credibility, and the respect of his peers. Word spread quickly through LinkedIn and private networks. Clients canceled contracts, colleagues stopped returning calls. Rebecca told me he'd sold his Audi to cover legal fees and support payments. The man who once bragged about his success was now drowning in debt. Melissa didn't fare any better. Her name was whispered in the same conversations as his, always with disgust. She applied to dozens of companies, but no one would hire her. The reason for her termination followed her everywhere. No one wanted the liability of hearing a woman who'd slept with her boss. Eventually, she moved back in with her parents, broke and embarrassed. Some mutual friends reached out, saying I'd gone too far. They said everyone makes mistakes, that I should have forgiven her. I didn't bother defending myself. I let them believe whatever they wanted. The people who knew the full story understood why I'd done it. Months passed, and the chaos settled into silence. Then one night, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. It was Melissa's mother. She sounded desperate, her voice shaking. She said Melissa couldn't find work, that she was depressed and lost. She asked if I'd meet with her, just once to talk. I said no. She called again the next day, pleading, saying Melissa was truly sorry. I told her I'd moved on and didn't want to reopen old wounds. She tried to guilt me, said I was being cruel. But I stayed firm and ended the call. A few days later, Melissa showed up at my apartment. She looked nothing like the woman I used to know. Her eyes were red, her hair unkempt, her voice small. She said she was sorry, that she had ruined everything. She begged me to help her find a job, to give her a chance. I stood in the doorway and just watched her crumble. You wanted to keep your options open, I said. Well, now you have them, all of them. She started crying harder, whispering, Please, Ryan, I have nothing left. I took a deep breath and shook my head. You made your choice, you live with it. I walked past her and into the building, leaving her on the steps. Through the peephole, I saw her eventually walk away, shoulders shaking. That was the last time I saw her. For once, she had to face a world she couldn't manipulate. And I finally got the quiet I deserved. A year passed before I realized how much lighter life had become. The noise, the chaos, the constant anxiety gone. For the first time in years, my apartment felt like home, not a battlefield. I focused on work, took extra shifts, and earned a promotion. It wasn't glamorous, but it came with peace of mind and stability. I moved into a new place, small but mine, chosen for myself alone. No one told me what color curtains to buy, or what looked embarrassing. I started sleeping better, eating better, feeling human again. Sometimes, I'd catch myself thinking about the past. Not with anger, but with disbelief that I'd tolerated so much. Melissa had drained me in ways I hadn't seen clearly before. She didn't just take money or time. She took energy, dignity, trust. And now, without her shadow, everything grew brighter. Rebecca and I kept in touch occasionally. She sent photos of her kids smiling again, rebuilding their lives. She said Thomas had tried to lower his payments once. Her lawyer shut that down fast. He was still working at a car dealership, selling mid-range sedans. It seemed fitting somehow. The man who'd built his life on ego now worked for commission. Justice doesn't always wear a judge's robe. Sometimes it just looks like balance returning to the world. As for Melissa, I never saw her again after that day on the steps. But her name came up once through a mutual friend. She was still unemployed, still living with her parents. She tried dating again, but no one stuck around for long. Apparently, she'd become different, quieter, sadder. Maybe she'd finally learned what loss feels like when it's her own fault. I didn't feel joy hearing it. Just closure. The story was finished, and I didn't need a sequel. Months later, I met someone new. Her name was Claire. She worked in marketing, had her own apartment, her own life. We met through friends at a dinner, and it just clicked. No games, no manipulation, no silent judgments. She didn't expect me to fix her problems or pay for her lifestyle. We split bills, shared plans, and actually talked about everything. She respected my time, and I respected her independence. It was easy, calm, the kind of relationship that doesn't drain you. One evening, I told her the whole story about Melissa. I wanted her to know where I came from, what I'd learned. She listened quietly, then said, "You didn't take revenge, you took back your life." Those words stayed with me for days. She was right. I hadn't destroyed anyone. They had destroyed themselves. I just stopped being the safety net. Now, I finally understood something important. Forgiveness isn't always noble. It's sometimes just another trap. Walking away isn't weakness. It's strength disguised as silence. Melissa wanted to keep her options open. I gave her exactly that. And I walked away with something far more valuable. My peace, my pride, and a life that finally belonged to me. Looking back now, I don't feel anger anymore. The pain has faded, replaced by something quieter clarity. Melissa taught me what self-respect really costs. It's not about revenge, or winning or proving a point. It's about knowing and to stop carrying someone else's weight. People like her think love means endless forgiveness. But love without respect is just self-destruction in disguise. She wanted freedom, choices, excitement. And I gave her exactly that. No strings, no safety net. Now she has every option in the world, but nowhere to land. Sometimes, I still remember the way she smiled when she lied. But then I remember how peaceful it felt when she left. That silence was the sound of my life starting again. I don't wish her harm. I just wish her to live long enough to understand what she lost. Because the real revenge isn't ruin, it's recovery. It's waking up one day and realizing you don't need them anymore. She wanted open doors. I walked through mine and never looked back. And that's the happiest ending I could ever ask for.